Author Donna Jodhan presents Episode 8, Santa's Christmas Midnight Mission. In this year, the real Santa Claus had decided to run a contest to find the person who could come up with the best secret Christmas mission. Santa receives several excellent ideas and chooses a very unusual one. The winner is a little boy named Christoff Fraulic. He is quite shy and timid, but Santa soon fixes this and takes Christoff under his wing. Find out what this secret midnight mission is and how Santa works with the winner to make it happen. All's well that ends well for little Christoff, and at the end, Christoff's dream comes true, and he's off to a brand new life. Santa's Christmas Midnight Mission, a tale of a secret midnight mission for a deserving little boy. Written by Donna J. Jodhan.
Hello, 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 ho, 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 everybody. It's Detective DJ, and welcome to episode 8 in my special Christmas box set series entitled The 12 Days of Christmas. I hope that everyone is enjoying themselves, and as I said in previous episodes, shopping, baking, cooking, running around, wrapping presents, doing everything that comes with this joyous, joyous season. Don't forget now to write your letter to Santa Claus telling him what you want. It could be anything from the biggest to the smallest of things, anything from the biggest of toys to the smallest of teddy bears. So everyone, compliments of the season, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, everything good to you from me and my team. Now, it is time for me to introduce to you episode 8, which is entitled Santa's Christmas Midnight Mission. And for those of you who have not been able to listen to my previous episodes, I'd just like to run down what they are for you once more so that if you're out shopping, online shopping that is, you could pick up a copy of any of these. The first episode was called Santa's Super Secret. The second was called The President's Super Christmas Plane. The third was called Santa's Secret Toy Shop. Number 4 was entitled Santa's Secret Christmas Ring. 5 was entitled Santa's Super Christmas Party. Number 6 was entitled Santa's Secret Sleigh Ride. Number 7 was entitled The President's Super Christmas Ship. Now it is time for me to introduce to you number 8, episode 8, which is entitled Santa's Secret Midnight Mission. I hope you enjoy it, and welcome aboard. Santa decides to do something different. One can easily say that in this particular year, Santa Claus decides to change things up a bit. Not very much, but just that bit. He is tired of the same old traditions, and he wants to do something different. This is not to say that he has not enjoyed what he has been doing during the past hundreds of years. Anything from sliding down chimneys to dropping packages through windows and sneaking them under Christmas trees, and driving his sleigh at breakneck speeds at Christmas time around the world. Santa has also enjoyed appearing in malls and at parties, taking kids on secret missions and working all year round with his elves and his helpers to create and develop toys and games for all girls and boys. He has thoroughly enjoyed zooming around the world at Christmas time, visiting countries far and wide, giving to the less fortunate, to those who are disabled, and even to the rich and wealthy. But there is one thing that Santa Claus has stayed away from, this being not to give to those who appear to be naughty, unkind, ungrateful, and selfish. Santa absolutely despises those who do not have the spirit of Christmas in them, and each year he personally scrutinizes every single letter and emails that he receives, and he makes sure that he only hands out presents to those who are not naughty and those who have been nice. It is almost the end of October, and Santa knows that he needs to start putting things together if he hopes to do all that he wants to for this year's Christmas. He is seated all alone in his massive workshop on this particular fall day, as he has given his elves and his helpers the afternoon off. He is resting his chin in his hands, and his head of thick white hair is bowed slightly. His desk is almost always piled high with papers and folders, and there is clutter everywhere. Somewhere below this huge pile are his computer and his phone. Santa is in a bit of a glum mood today, and he blames it on the somewhat gloomy weather out there. Mrs. Claus comes in with a plate of Santa's favorite cookies, along with 2 cups of steaming hot tea, and she lays the tray quietly before him, and then she pulls up a chair and sits waiting for him to speak. At first, Santa does not see his wife sitting there, but then the smell of the cookies catches his attention, and he looks up. He smiles when he sees her, and she serves him his tea, and she places some of the cookies on a small saucer and pushes it towards him. Santa begins to munch on his favorite cookies, and then he takes a sip of his tea. Soon he's telling Mrs. Claus about his problem. Mrs. Claus listens attentively, and then she has an idea. She shares it with her husband, and soon he is shaking his head in agreement. And it does not take long for his customary smile to return. The Clauses rise and walk out of the toy shop and head towards their massive kitchen. It's time to start preparing dinner for the elves and helpers who will soon be returning from their afternoon outing. The Clauses go to work in their kitchen. Pots and pans clang together and dishes rattle around, while cutlery is placed on tables along with plates, glasses, and cups. Mrs. Claus is humming softly to herself as she works, while her husband sings along with a Christmas Carol which is playing on the CD player. Dinner will soon be ready. Santa's unique Christmas contest. For the next week, Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, and their helpers and elves, and even the reindeer, all put their heads together to come up with something new for this Christmas. Santa wants to do something different and unique. Everyone wants to help, but thus far no one has really come up with anything unique. Christmas is fast approaching, and in addition to all of their work, Santa is insisting on everyone pulling together to come up with something new. And then it all happens one night after dinner as the Clauses are stretched out on their respective lazy boy chairs, and Santa's elves and reindeer are gathered around. A fire is burning in the fireplace, and the fragrant scent of the logs permeates throughout the large room. Everyone has just eaten a huge meal, and some are nodding off as they try to stay awake. It is Rudolph who comes up with the idea, and just in the nick of time, as Santa was almost ready to nod off, and he would probably have fallen out of his chair had Rudolph not moved quickly to stop him. Santa was also beginning to snore, but he denies this when Rudolph tells him so. Rudolph thinks that it would be a great idea if Santa could run a contest to see who could come up with the best idea to bring Christmas into the hearts and homes of someone who is in great need, someone who is less fortunate, and someone who deserves to celebrate a great Christmas. It is not very often that Rudolph speaks up. Whenever Santa and Mrs. Claus are together with their elves and their reindeer, and Santa is absolutely delighted that he is doing so this evening. Rudolph's red nose seems to be even redder as he speaks, and everyone loves his idea. A contest to see who could come up with the person who they feel Santa Claus should be bringing a special Christmas to. A person who they feel deserves it the most, and why they feel that this person deserves it. And Santa Claus promises that he will make it happen. And soon Santa gets the word out to everyone. He advertises on his website, he advertises on Facebook and Twitter, and he advertises all across the internet. He even advertises on TV and on the radio, and he advertises in the newspapers. His ads are circulated around the world, and his elves and his helpers help to spread the word. And soon the emails and the tweets and the Facebook posts and the letters begin to pour in. And then it is time for Santa and Mrs. Claus and his elves and his helpers to start reading all of the tweets, all of the mails, all of the posts, and all of the emails. And the winner is... And boy, are there many emails and letters, Facebook posts and tweets to read. But everyone is already in the Christmas mood and more than willing to work double overtime. Santa Claus has to split up his people into small groups so that things can be done quickly. Even the reindeer get involved in everything, but their job is to sort everything into specific piles as outlined by Santa. Some of the elves read emails, while others read letters. And some of the helpers read tweets, while others read Facebook tweets. Then Santa and Mrs. Claus start to choose from each pile, and then it is down to final readings. It is a difficult choice as Santa and Mrs. Claus read so many touching stories from kids, as well as from adults, from countries far and wide. Several of the stories bring tears to the Clauses. Some of the kids ask Santa to bring them toys because their parents are unable to afford to buy them for them. Some of the adults ask Santa to help them find a job. Others ask him to help them cure their illness, while others ask him to take them in there and their families out of their war-torn homelands. Then there are those who ask Santa to help their families stay together, and those who ask Santa to help cure others. Others ask for so many other things. Many of those writing in believe that Santa can help to cure illnesses, poverty, injuries, and so much more. They believe that he is a magician. And truth be told, he could be called one. So many great suggestions to choose from. But at the end of the day, Santa comes up with a winner. A little boy whose story has touched the Clauses and tugs at their heartstrings, and Santa is determined to make his dream come true. He's a little boy from a very far-off country, and Santa shares the story of the winner with his elves and reindeer, and everyone is on board. And now it is time to move on to the next step. An encounter for Christoff Fraulic. The little boy is walking aimlessly through the fields. He has nowhere to go but home. And what is home? A bombed out and run down house where he lives with his parents and baby sister. There is no school these days, as the village schoolhouse was recently destroyed when the big planes came and bombed it to the ground. Many of his friends and parents are no longer around. They have either been killed or taken away by enemy troops. The little boy's dad goes out each day to work at odd jobs and to look for food for his family. His mom stays at home with his baby sister, while he, Christoff, walks in the fields picking whatever fruits he can find. This is a life for the families in this tiny little village, in a country very far away in Eastern Europe. Very little to eat and drink, not much running water, and families have to depend on their radios to hear the latest news. Families help each other, and families depend on each other, and families stick close together. Little Christoff Fraulic somehow heard Santa's ad on the radio one evening, and an idea came to him. Just 6 years old, and the little boy was very innovative. A few nights after hearing Santa's ad, he had written a letter to Santa Claus with the help of a gas light lamp. He had placed the letter into an envelope that he had managed to make for himself, and the next day he had set out on the main road leading from his home. His idea was to give his letter to a passing soldier, for there were many around these days, and ask the soldier to mail it for him. And this is exactly what had happened. Little Christoff had not gone very far when he spotted a young soldier standing near to a tree, smoking and eating a large apple. Christoff had gathered up all of his courage and had approached the soldier. He took the letter out of his pocket and had shown it to the soldier. And the soldier had looked down at him, smiled, and then little Christoff had asked shyly if the soldier could mail his letter to Santa Claus for him. At first the soldier had looked puzzled, but then he had reached out and had taken the letter from Christoff's outstretched hand. Then, when he saw the anxious expression in the little boy's eyes, he had taken pity on him. He read the address on the envelope, written in the little boy's childlike scroll, and he told himself that he would mail it just for the heck of it. He told Christoff that he would mail it for him. And then he had reached down and patted Christoff's head, ruffling his thick blonde curls as he had done so. Then he had offered the little boy a bite of his apple. That was just a few weeks ago. And now, as Christoff walks in the fields, gathering fruits in his basket along the way, he remembers the letter that he has written to Santa Claus. And he also remembers that Christmas is almost here. He wonders whether or not the soldier has mailed his letter to Santa Claus. He wonders what this Christmas is going to be like for him and his family. And soon he begins to cry. He knows that there won't be any toys from Santa Claus this year. He knows that things are very bad for his family. And he has overheard his parents saying that when winter comes, things are going to get even worse. It is getting late, and Christoff must hurry home before his dad comes looking for him. He is getting hungry, but he knows that supper will not be very much. Just a small bowl of soup, a thin slice of bread, and he will have to share the fruits that he has gathered along the way in his little basket with his family. Then Christoff dries his eyes on his sleeve and starts trudging homeward. But then he hears it. As he walks close to a clump of bushes, he hears it again. Then he sees it. A tiny little kitten lying on its side. Its front paws seem to be injured. Christoff moves quietly towards the injured kitten, and then he bends down for a look. Then he picks it up and starts playing with it. Then he notices something else. A bow tied around the kitten's neck with a tag that says, "Merry Christmas." The little boy hesitates for a very brief moment, and then he gently places the injured kitten in his basket and continues on his homeward journey. Planning the Midnight Mission. Santa knows that by nature little Christoff Fraulic is shy and timid, but he has read Christoff's letter several times, and he is bound and determined to help him. He needs to find a way to gain little Christoff's trust, and to get him to be a bit more outgoing before he embarks on his mission. This mission is going to be a challenge for Santa and his elves, but Santa is up to it. And he needs to make sure that his reindeer are ready for it as well. In mid-December, on a rather snowy evening, Santa calls an early evening meeting with his elves and reindeer to discuss their plan of action. He has already taken care of what needs to be done for the Christmas holidays, and all of the schedules and drop-offs have been posted for everyone to see. Everyone knows exactly what they are expected to be doing, and now it is time to plan this special Christmas midnight mission. Everyone sits attentively waiting for Santa to enter, and when he does, he's carrying a sheaf of papers in his hands. Everyone draws close, and Santa starts to speak. He lays out maps, checklists for the journey, and lists of tasks for everyone present. He tells everyone to dress extra warmly for the journey, and to make sure that the sleigh is loaded with extra provisions in case of an emergency. He gives them the departure date, and then he has a very special task for Rudolph, one that Rudolph is simply delighted to be given. Yes, the date is set, but Santa prays that the weather will cooperate, because he would rather be able to travel in fair weather rather than having to battle snowstorms and cold, gusty Christmas winds. Everyone is excited, and the sleigh is prepared to perfection. And then the day of the departure is here. But fate decides to give Santa a minor headache. The morning is bright and sunny, and the elves and reindeer are up early and getting ready. Santa decides to check on them and is greeted with the news that Rudolph is not feeling very well. He has come down with a very bad cold and is sneezing constantly, and his nose is growing redder by the hour. Santa goes to see Rudolph in his room and finds Rudolph sneezing and crying, and he is very sad. Rudolph knows that he has a very bad cold, but he wants so badly to carry out his special task for Santa. What to do? On the one hand, Santa does not want to risk the health of his favorite reindeer, but on the other hand, he does not want to disappoint him. He coaxes Rudolph into bed and tells him that he will be back very soon, and then he goes off in search of Mrs. Claus. The Clauses are back in no time, and Mrs. Claus has brought Rudolph a cup of her special steaming tea. It is sweet, and Rudolph drinks it quickly. Then he is asleep in no time, and the Clauses hope and pray that it will do the trick. They leave Rudolph in bed and go off to check on the others, and they find the elves playing hide and seek, and the other reindeer playing ball games. And now it is almost time to depart, and lo and behold, Rudolph has recovered very nicely, and he joins the others for their long and somewhat dangerous trip. Christoff's Christmas Eve Dream. It is Christmas Eve, and as Santa's sleigh travels across miles of land and ocean, and over hills and mountains, and across lakes and rivers, dodging one snowstorm after another, and battling high winds and blizzards, a little boy all tucked away in a small but comfy bed in a very far-off country where war has taken so much away. So many of his friends and family, he begins to dream. He dreams about the letter that he has written to Santa several weeks ago, how he had placed it in a handmade envelope, and how he had given it to a nice soldier on the main road, asking the young soldier to mail it for him. But he is not sure if his letter has gotten to Santa Claus, because he has not heard anything from Santa Claus. And as Christoff dreams, he begins to worry, and soon he is crying his little eyes out. In his dream, Christoff Fraulic clearly remembers what he has written. He has asked Santa to take him and his family and his parents and his baby sister from this sad little village, because so many of his friends have been killed in the war. And now they have very little food, very little running water, and most of all, there won't be any toys for this Christmas, and they probably won't be attending church. Christoff remembers going to church last year, and how much he had enjoyed seeing the mangers and hearing the church bells ring. Christoff ends his letter by pleading with Santa to save not just him and his family, but also his little friends and their families, and to get the soldiers to stop fighting each other. He pleads with Santa to fix things for everyone in his village. Christoff is very sad and wants to help his parents, but he does not know how to do it. He is just a little boy with a big wish, but then something happens to little Christoff. And as his dream continues, he somehow finds himself walking amongst a group of kids just like himself on a very busy sidewalk. Christoff sees lots of stores, and in their windows are lots of toys being displayed. There are Christmas lights everywhere, and the scent of cookies baking wafts towards him. Soon Christoff begins to get hungry. He continues to walk along with the other kids, and soon they are sharing their toys and goodies with him. The pretty little girl gives him a chocolate bar, while a little boy shoves a gift-wrapped box into his hands. And soon Christoff begins to smile and laugh, and he is happy and singing along with his new friends. Some of the kids ask him his name, but Christoff is too shy to answer. But then the kids start to run, and Christoff is running along with them. But he can't seem to keep up with them, and soon they are out of sight. And then he finds himself all alone, and he begins to be afraid. But then he hears a very familiar laugh, and as he looks around, he sees him. But it is here that Christoff's dream ends, and he wakes with a start. He realizes that it has all been a dream. He begins to cry. It's Christmas Eve, and Santa won't be coming this year. There won't be any toys, and there won't be any church bells. His parents hear him crying, and they hurry to comfort him. And soon he is asleep once more. They take their little boy and place him gently in his bed. And then they too go back to bed and fall into a deep sleep. While the village was asleep. And as the villagers of the sad little village sleep, they have no idea what is about to happen next. Snow has been falling all through the day in the village, and the snow-covered streets are practically deserted because almost all of the villagers are hunkered down in their shabby little houses. There are less than 1,000 adults and children left in the sad little village. It is very, very cold on this Christmas Eve, and the residents have had to use whatever they could in order to stay warm. Christoff and his family have managed to find just enough blankets to keep themselves warm, and they have done their best to make their one room as comfy as possible. The embers from a dying fire are still burning, but barely, and this helps to provide a bit of warmth to the family. Christoff's baby sister Sasha is a bit fussy tonight, but her mom manages to calm her down enough so that she too is now asleep. And the family's dog is curled up close to her little bed. And even the kitten that Christoff recently brought home is sleeping deeply in a corner of the tiny little room. All is quiet throughout the village, and even the soldiers on duty have decided to call it a night, having drunk their share of vodka and eaten some of their scanty rations. And as they snore heavily and sleep deeply, a group of visitors slip silently into the sad little village. The large village clock has just chimed midnight, but probably no one has heard its chimes. As Santa puts down his heavily loaded sleigh in a field close to the village, and as everyone quietly alights from the sleigh, they notice that there are some shepherds in the distance, and they too seem to be asleep, while their sheep stand around stamping their feet, doing their best to stay warm. Santa and his group know only too well that they have to work fast if they are to put things in order. And this is why he has had to bring along a few additional sleighs in order to get the job done. And he has also had to bring along extra helpers. First things first. They find Christoff's little house, and as the little boy sleeps unaware that there is company, Santa and his team make things right. The family dog sees them, but at a signal from Santa Claus, he goes back to sleep without a whimper. Then things are put right in all of the other village houses. And finally, Santa and his team take all of the weapons away from the sleeping soldiers. Santa and his helpers have brought Christmas to a tiny little village that has been sorely affected by war. A tiny little village tucked away in a far-off country. A tiny little village that up until now has not had much food, running water, or anything else. War has ravaged this tiny little village, killing many of the villagers, but this is about to change in a huge surprise, which is awaiting the villagers. And not too long to wait now. The Christmas morning surprise. And the ringing of church bells awakened the villagers along with the sound of fireworks and crackers and sirens. Christoff rubs his sleepy eyes, and then he is out of bed, calling for his parents. No one can believe it. The reaction is practically the same in every little village house. The lights are back on, and the running water has also returned. Houses seem to have been magically repaired, and lo and behold, there are tons of food, blankets, clothes, and above all, a toyland of toys for the children. And even the soldiers are celebrating. War is over, and now they too cannot believe it. At least this is what they're hearing on their radio sets. Then the TV sets are turned on, and the news headlines and the cartoon programs fill the screens. All's well that ends well, and as Christoff lies in bed on that happy Christmas night, he realizes that after all, that Santa did get his letter, and that a kind young soldier had mailed it for him. Moreover, there is a Santa Claus after all. And in a large, comfy kitchen, thousands of miles away, Santa and his wife celebrate with their elves, their reindeer, and their helpers. I'm Detective DJ, and I hope that everyone enjoyed Episode 8, Santa's Christmas Midnight Mission. I'd like to wish each and every one of you a very, very Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Season's Greetings, Joy in the Well, Feliz Navidad, everything good, and a toast for the new year. And I hope that you join me for Episode 9. You take care. Bye for now. Ho, ho, ho.